So without wasting much time, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Rakesh Kamath. Rakesh is a committed product advocate who is SAFE and POPM certified. He has over 13 years of experience in the financial service industry, managing digital business engagements for major investment banks and neobanks. He is passionate about driving the entire product journey and seeking out ways to add the most value. He is skilled in leading multidisciplinary teams on the range of transformation efforts to produce top notch digital products. His primary abilities include envisioning solutions that are relevant to the sector, influencing client leadership for innovation led digital transformation, and creating a strategic product vision. He began his career as a research intern at Central Food Technological Research Institute, where he spent a year before changing jobs to work as an intern business analyst at Happiest Mind Technologies. After that, he spent more than 5 years working as a business analyst for Tata Consultancy Services before moving on to Societe Generale Global Solution Center, where he spent more than 6 years, and he has been employed at Publicis Sapient as a senior product manager for about 2 years now. He has a wealth of knowledge spanning more than 13 years and is an alum. I'm forward to learn more about your adventure, sir. I will now turn it over to you, sir, and ask you to continue.
Thank you, Mansi. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. I was planning to introduce myself, but I think that's fine. First of all, thank you so much for the opportunity, right? To interact with some really young minds and to share my journey post-soil, right? Just to ensure that the entire structure of what we're going to speak today is a little more logical. I just put forward a short presentation of sort that's going to help me to talk to you better and also to understand what's that drives me to get into product management as a craft once I finish my journey at Soil. Right. So without further ado, let's start the conversation. Right. Just want to start with a quick disclaimer. This is basically to say at the beginning of every presentation that any views and opinions that I will share on this is my own. It's based on my experience and does not reflect any views or positions of entity that I would have worked with or represent. So I want to just make sure that we've logically understood that. In terms of what I'm looking at is just a few house rules so that we understand each other better. One is mute or unmute your mics. I know this is a webinar; there may not be an opportunity. So if you do want to share opinions, do give yourself a chance to mute or unmute yourself, and you can share the opinions. So Mansi, this goes to you as well, right? Do feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions, or take this conversation forward. So it's perfectly an open mic conversation. Always turn on videos. It'd be great if I can see everyone. If that's not the pattern here, that's fine. Just to ensure that we have a conversation. So I'm able to see you, Mansi, and that's great, right? The last bit is, of course, ask questions. Put it on chat. Mansi, you're going to be my quiz master of today. Look at the questions, ask me questions whenever you feel you want to raise them. I think there's also a raise hand button, so I'll let people also raise hands if they have any questions they want to ask. So let's start, right? Peek into my life. My name is Rakesh Kamath. So Mansi has very well introduced me. A lot of internship experience, which I did during my engineering and then also at Soil. So what I did with Happiest Minds was an internship at Soil. So I still want to consider it. It brought me a lot of value as an individual. But just to start with a peek into my life, what you see is my family. I am a proud father of a 11-month baby. So when I'm not busy working and transforming for clients and businesses, I do spend a lot of time with her. whenever I look at myself, I also consider uh, a lot of other things that I do apart from just looking into the career front. I love watching movies. Spend a lot of time composing music, creating music, listening, playing music. So, incidentally, that's something that I love doing. I'm a foodie, avid foodie. When you look at me, you realize that I do eat a lot. Yes, I do. But I love cooking as well. So I'm an avid gourmet foodie, and that's what I align myself with. Um, the way that I want to have this conversation with all of you is, it's sort of bends that have happened in my life as an individual, and each of these bends actually has transformed the way that I am today. And that's what I want to start this conversation with, right? A bend on the road is not the end of the road. It's only an end when you fail to make that turn, and that's what has been my mantra when I started my career, and even through my education, I've tried to identify those bends. And what I would go through with all of you on this call are those bends that have come in so many years that I've been working. So just so that we have a structure around it, four different parts to it: formative years, talk a little bit about my education, where do I come from, what has been the transformative journey for me. I'll talk about a little bit in terms of my career and my progression through different roles across organizations. I want to dedicatedly spend some time to talk about life of a senior product manager. What do I do? What do product managers do? And really want to talk about that a little bit because that's really, really close to my heart. And of course, last but not the least is now, next, and beyond. What's next, right? What keeps me going? So I'll also spend some time on that. Let's start pretty simply. Formative years. I started my career. Before even I started my career, I actually went through quite a bit of education run. So I did my engineering from New Horizon College of Engineering in Bangalore. I did a BE in biotech. Um, um, I was a PCMB student, so therefore biotechnology, because I wanted math and biology as a subject. And then, of course, worked for a couple of years, realized that my next uh, uh, step towards my growing my professional life as well as my knowledge is getting into soil. So I did my PGPM. It's a 1-year program in 2013, and we were the fifth batch of soil, and we were the Go Givers batch. So Anil sir always ends up having a certain name for each batch, and we were called the Go Givers. And I was a student council president there, and of course, in that 1 year, I did a lot of things, learned a lot of things. And I will talk about a little bit of those as well. And then, of course, when I passed out of college in 2014, decided to have some fun, get some energy into life, right? So a couple of things I want to talk about soil before I get into after soil is one is the morning circle. I think this has been a a mind-boggling experience. To hold hands, to stand in a circle in the morning before you start your day. We seldom do that now, of course, after so many years, but I try to do that with my team whenever we have a physical meetup at office, or at least try to do that. And it brings a lot of energy when you're together. It brings that kind of unity of thought, and therefore this is a very important thing that happened for me. And this, of course, is something that's really close to my heart. This is a picture that was taken of Sudbury, where we go for the annual transformational retreat, where that's where I heard the word transform come over and over again. Right now I'm transforming as well. And this is where you introspect and you try to bridge between what you've learned, um, what I learned as a management a student, and try to merge it with the lifestyle of what's happening around Sidbury, and try to really find out what you want to do next. I think one of the most important decisions of my life happened at Sidbury, because Mansi, very interesting conversation that I wanted to do with you, right? When I joined Soil, I was already working with TCS. And I had come down on a sabbatical. So the idea was TCS has this opportunity where you can, take time off, go do your education. And TCS, being a wonderful organization, doesn't really ask you to come back. There are no bonds. At least there weren't no bonds at that time. There weren't any obligations that you need to come back at the same role or anything like that. So the idea was that fine, you want to study more, go great, go ahead, do it, and then once you're done with it, why don't you come back? I mean, that's the intention of the sabbatical anyway. And during Sidbury is when I had this realization, because during this 1 year we go through so many different courses. We do a lot of case studies, a lot of presentations, and in that space you kind of bring in a lot of value, because you have to pick out companies that you want to do case studies on. And a lot of my companies were from the Tata Group, Tata Motors, Tata Steel, TCS. And I started realizing that the TCS code of conduct and the TCS value is something that was really instilled in me. And that's why what we did, many of us who were from TCS actually decided to go back to our mothership after MBA. So we didn't really opt for placements. We went back consciously, although we had enough and more opportunities to sit and get through companies. But we decided to go back to the mothership. And that's why this picture is so important, because one of the decisions of going back came right in front of the wonderful mountains of Sidbury, right? Now we'll come to the transformational journey, the journey that makes me smile every time I think about it, right? Because it's reflective. I started my journey at TCS after I finished my MBA. So anything before that was more internships, where I kind of learned the trade but not really work, right? You learn, you build your capability. So when I started my journey with TCS, this was just after my engineering. I was a full stack developer, so I spent quite some amount of time understanding the technicalities. From the IT industry point of view, right? And then as I moved on, I started realizing that there's something more that I want to do, and that's when I decided to go and do my MBA. And that's when I chose Soil out of all the institutes that were available. Fast track 2014, passed out of Soil, and next was to go back to TCS. And I was fortunate to be given the opportunity to actually work as a business analyst. And I was working in investment banking in treasury migration for some time. And then that's when my interest towards finance became stronger and stronger. And then I decided to leave TCS behind, leave my mothership behind, and go and join Societe Generale. So Societe Generale is a French investment bank. And I spent a good 6 years with them, understanding their businesses, becoming an SME into a lot of digital transformation that they were doing in the compliance control room practices. And cut to 2021, post-COVID, and I wanted to do something more. Working as an SME gave me a lot of joy and energy, because I used to have a lot of interactions with the business. My decisions, my opinions were valued. But then I wanted to challenge myself. I said, we worked for a good amount of time in investment banking. I want to do something very different. I want to really understand the problems of my customers. Instead of getting the problem from the customer, I really want to find the problems and solve it for them. And that's when Publicis Sapient knocked at the door and said, Rakesh, why don't you join us? We have some very interesting work coming for you. And that's when I left SocGen and joined Publicis Sapient, and I've not looked back since. I mean, it's been almost 2 years that I would be part of Sapient, and it's been a transformation of a different kind, because um, from being an investment banking expert, I have moved into SME neobanks. So, Mansi, neobanks are banks that do not have branches. So imagine setting up a neobank for a client from scratch, where you don't have a bank or a branch at all, right? And then building solutions, creating their massive transformations for corporate and commercial banking for large banks across the world. And that's when I've realized my true calling, um, to continue to be part of product management. Uh, this is a field that requires you a lot of knowledge, but also requires you to grow. And I will spend some time to elaborate that. So for me, the work that I did with SocGen, the work that I did with Publicis Sapient, and I'm doing with Publicis Sapient, both of them were transformational for me as an individual post-soil. And it's that position where you realize that a lot of theory that you would study would actually come into practice. So let's get into the crux of what I want to talk about, right? So what's the life of a product manager? And that's a very funny meme that I saw on the internet. I didn't hesitate to put that in, because this entire word product manager has so much of dexterity that exists to it, and people think differently about what a product manager does, and we'll touch about it, of course, Mansi, and think for other listeners who are trying to understand whether this is a career path that they want to choose. There are some glass shattering information coming ahead, and I really want to spend some time on this. One very important thing that I want to touch upon, at Soil, the entire concept of curating between what the business wants and what theoretically is needed to understand. I think that amalgamation actually helped me understand, because the transition from moving away to a role that requires you to really have a client-facing experience comes out of the way the subjects have been curated, because it helped better understand some very basic concepts to build conversations with some of the great with some of the clients at a deep level. Before we get into product management and talk more about it, I want to demarcate different roles that exist, and to understand what each of these roles do. If you know what these roles do, it helps you understand how better you can prepare for the role, right? BA for me is very wrongly construed in the IT industry. So they consider, what does a BA do? BA takes requirements. No, a business analyst analyzes businesses, understands what is needed by the customer, and then therefore works with the teams to actually build those solutions, right? Many a times, this information is provided by the client or the business. On the other hand, when we move towards, and I want to touch upon project manager a little bit, because people often confuse themselves with product manager, project manager, management consultants. No, so management consultants are people who actually do strategical work, who are responsible of doing research, understanding strategy for businesses, but they are not in the implementation. They don't do implementations of sorts. Implementations are handled mostly by product managers or product owners, who take care of understanding what the business needs and therefore caters to it. A project manager is more from getting things done, right? It's very different from a product manager, because a project manager handles projects, whereas a product managers actually own products. They are interns, in colloquial terms, called CEOs of the products that they own and they work with, right? So it's very important to understand the demarcation. And I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes on this. quickly, right? What Google says about qualities of successful PM. Don't really want to talk about it. It's on everyone's screens. But primarily, just want to touch upon something very, very critical, right? When we start looking at different products, especially in financial services, right? It's an industry that's very complicated. Mansi, since I know that there are other people on the call, but I'll still use you as an example, right? If Mansi wants to open a bank account today, so what does Mansi do, right? Mansi actually has to go. So you can unmute yourself, Mansi. Let's quickly answer some of the questions. Let me ask you a question, right? Just give me a name of a bank that you want to that you have an account in or would want to have an account in.
ICICI Bank.
Wonderful, ICICI Bank. So if you have to open an account with ICICI Bank, do you know how much time it takes you to open an account with ICICI Bank? A fair guess.
So now though it takes around an hour to open an account.
Yeah.
It is like a jiffy only. Initially, it used to take around a week to open an account.
Exactly, right? So what's changed? So what's changed primarily is ICICI Bank has understood what Mansi as a customer wants, right? ICICI Bank understands that Mansi is looking at opening an account quickly because she's someone who's from the Gen XYZ group, right? Gen Z, Gen Alpha, who are Instagram pro and who want things to be done. You know, they can't wait for 2 minutes noodles anymore. For them, it's 30 seconds or less, right? And therefore, a lot of these banks are transforming today. I've taken just an example, right? I mean, it's for the conversation purposes, we've taken ICICI Bank, but any bank today, if you look at any of the existing banks today, there's a lot of processes that exist today that takes much, much longer. If I tell you, Mansi, that you can open an account in a minute, will you believe me? You think there's a possibility that you can open an account in a minute?
Sure, there is possibility.
It's possibility. Let me make it easier for you, right? When you open an account, how many documents you had to submit, Mansi?
Around 5-6 documents: Aadhaar card, PAN card.
Absolutely. So you had to submit your Aadhaar card, your PAN card. If you were already working, then probably your last 3 pay slips, your ITR forms, because you need to open an account. And if not, then someone needs to
family background knowledge.
Exactly, right? What if I tell you that there's a way that all this information can be taken automatically from government systems and you don't need to submit any documents at all? Wow, exactly, right? That's the word I was looking for. If someone comes to you and says that, you know what, Mansi, all we need is give me an identifier, an Aadhaar card number, a PAN card number, some kind of an identifier, and we'll get everything done. Your form filling, we'll capture your data the way you want it. We will even do your KYC without you even uploading one document. There are systems today that you can just keep your iPhone or your Android device right in front of your face, and it would scan your face and do the KYC for you, and within seconds. That's the power of product management, because from a bank standpoint, they need customers to work with them, and I think that's something that is important. And to give that ability to look at minimum lovable product instead of minimum viable product is very important. So minimum viable product is basically it's a jargon that's used by product managers, where we say that, okay, I want to create, say, an onboarding platform. If I want customers to onboard, what is the minimum amount of things I need to do so that the customer can easily complete the journey? That's minimum viable product. Whereas minimum lovable product is the end-to-end implementation of an onboarding journey that lets Mansi say, wow, that's minimum lovable product. And To be a successful product manager, right? And this is not just for product manager, right? Ansi, you told me you come from marketing. A lot of these things will ring a bell with you as well. Someone who's coming from marketing needs to have good business acumen. Someone who's getting into should have good domain knowledge. So same thing applies for product management, because we are very close to market people. And it's very important to have these qualities about leadership, qualities about looking at what's happening in the market, right? If I tell you, Mansi, that I can identify all your details just by you scanning the chip on your PAN card. I don't even need your number anymore. You use your NFC on your phone, you tap on your phone, your PAN card, which has a chip, right? And I can read all your details from that chip and get it validated by some of the government websites to authenticate you. So I don't even need the number anymore. How would that happen? That would happen because banks are now looking at making things more and more smoother for the customer, yet ensuring that there is safety, right? Because I know a lot of people will think that, okay, is it safe? Where's my data being used? Financial
privacy.
Yeah, if you don't mind submitting pages together of documents and you talk about privacy there, it's easier for you to tap and get your information. And we are a bank, right? Bank always, you are looking for a bank to give you that security, and this is how security comes in, right? So moving on to a little bit more deeper construct, right? For any role that you want to get into, there are three things that I feel that you should have. One is core skills. Your core, what's that one thing that makes you a strong professional, right? I've just given examples from product management here, but this applies for any role that you're getting into. Your core competency is very important. What is that thing that defines you as an individual? If you're a digital marketer, then your core digital marketing skills should be top notch, right? It's no longer theoretical data. People look at how you can convert theory into practicals, right? It's very, very important to bring that in. The IT industry, we talked about Agile and Scrum. So Agile is being faster, delivering in iterations. And scaled Agile is for organizations where we want to do, transformations at an organizational level. So it's no longer at a minuscule level, at a project level or a journey level, but actually at an organizational level, right? And last but not the least is domain expertise, being a subject matter expert. So if people talk to you about a certain domain, your domain skills is most important, because you need to understand where you're coming from. Understanding about in depth about what's important, right? It's a little more than moving into theory to practical, because at the end, so imagine this, right? So let's take an example. Mansi, do you like omelets? I'm going to use you as an example for a lot of my conversations. It's easier for me to do that.
Yes, sir, I like omelets.
Oh, awesome. If I just throw two omelets on, break two eggs on the tawa, right? And I make omelets for you. Would you like it? Would you like it?
Sure.
You would like it just if I throw through two eggs, just I break through eggs.
No, not just two eggs. I need some spices. I need
You need some spices. You need
onion, capsicum.
So if I throw spices just like that, will you be happy to have it?
No, a bread work.
You would want to ensure that it's not too salty, it's not too spicy, it's the right amount of spice. And then you would ask me for more, right? You would say, Rakesh, why don't you cut some onions, put some cheese in it, staple mozzarella, so that you can, have that spread. And then you also want breaded toasts with it, right? So what happens here when you're having conversations with your clients, with your businesses? They're going to come to you just like that. If you just throw two eggs for them, they're not going to be happy. They're going to ask for more, and they would ask for the right kind of ingredients, the right way that it's created, right? And same thing applies. Now, how can you ensure that you know what's the right kind of a omelette for you, right? If I'm making an omelette for Mansi, I need to understand what's Mansi's taste like. Does she like it too spicy or not? Is she, does she like it less salty, more salty? Does she like onions, or is she an anti-onion person? Okay, I don't like onions. Or cheese, or maybe Mansi may come back saying, you know what, I don't want 2 eggs, I want 3, or I'm a single egg person, make it the sunny side up. So it's very important to get that amalgamation in between what the business needs and what you can offer. And when you sit in conversations, right, if you have an understanding of what you're doing, it's easier for you to relate, right? Because I did relate with you, Mansi, so I was able to understand what we needed. And therefore, when I give you a particular solution to a problem, that brings value to you, right? Um, let's talk about this slide in a little detail. Um, so, solutions today are given to businesses. So, say you heard about the Blockbuster example. Have you heard about what's happened? What happened to Blockbuster as a company? Do you hear about it? You know what Blockbuster used to do? Yeah, this is in the 60s and 70s, right? And 80s. Yeah. So Blockbuster, this was in a time where there was no OTTs, right? And there were no ways to um, uh, own stuff, right? See stuff, stream stuff. So Blockbuster came up with this idea, and what they wanted to do was they opened a rental chain. So Blockbuster allows you to rent movies using tapes, right? Those physical, I don't know, VCRs, if you remember it. And then they moved to CDs. But you, like a library, you subscribe for it. You go to the place, you pick up what you need, you pay for it, you use it, you return back. A subscription-based model. So when Netflix came in, when some of these latest things came in, where they started streaming stuff, when it was more available, cheaper, people were able to use streaming. Uh, Blockbuster failed, and you know why they failed? Because they were not ready to transform their businesses. It's a very, very common example in marketing where big businesses fail today, right? And it's very important. So let me take an example, right? This entire concept of speed is actually an acronym. Speed starts with it actually is an acronym that allows different people to work together to solve big problems. So the big and we fit into it, right? The first one is strategy. So they are the people who actually work with the businesses to understand management consultants, right? To understand what the problem is. Is there a problem that exists? What are the different problems, opportunities that exist, right? They work very closely with product, which is P, to build great experiences, designs, user experiences that allow people to deliver the best value. And engineering, people who are developers, who are analysts, who can actually build those solutions, and data, right? Because at the end of the day, data is most important. So SPEED acronym actually allows the best of solutions because they work together in coherence to deliver the best value to the business. And it's agile. And agility comes from the fact that people are able to build stuff quickly because the market changes, right? I'll give you a very recent example of something that I heard. So we were looking at one very critical customer who was trying to get into a market where they were, when you go to the airport, they were looking at booking cabs, right? And this particular business was doing really well initially, and then slowly as time went by, they started realizing that the revenue is dropping. And then they reached out to a lot of people to understand what's happening. And what they realized is, as a business, they were forgetting that how the business the other competitors were transforming their processes, which is moving into ride sharing, moving into some of the other businesses, right? So, and that transformation, their realization took so late that they couldn't really adapt to it, and they had to close the businesses. So it's very, very important to understand when to realize that you can really get into a business and increase the value of the business, right? And as product managers, we kind of help with that. So moving on, I want to talk about what's now, next, and beyond for me. Of course, some of the cornerstones that has helped me to grow, right? So people keep asking me, and people who are my friend, who are my connections on LinkedIn, keep telling me, Rakesh, it's been so many years you finished your MBA, almost 10 years, 2013, 2014, almost 10 years, and you're still doing certification. When I see you, you're posting that you're doing LinkedIn learning courses, you are putting Udemy courses, you are taking certifications. Why do you? I mean, is there an end to it? And my answer is no. Self-learning has no end, because you keep building your capabilities, your knowledge. Understand what aligns with you, right? And that helps you to grow. Building a product mindset is very simple. To understand how products work, how different things around you work, and how they are building value to their customers. Like I said about ICICI Bank, right? There's so many things. I mean, can you really understand how an Uber works? Have you looked at how are they making money? They don't own any of the Uber cars, right? So for a business which is platform driven, because they just provide a platform for customers to book, vehicles, and the vehicles are owned by the drivers. It's not owned by Uber, right? How are they able to make money? And how are you able to take that information and put in your business, the business that you work with, the clients that you work with? A very simple thing, Mansi. I'll give you an example, right? So we were building a servicing journey for one of our clients, right? And basically, this is a journey where the customer needs to come and fill a form and submit the form to the bank. So currently, I used to fill a form and then submit the request, right? I want to change my mobile number. I want to change my details. So when we're building a journey, we asked our client that we are asking the customer to fill certain data, and then we are just asking the customer to submit the data. Can we make this even better for the customer? Can we add a layer in between? Can we put in a touch point, like how it works in e-commerce websites? When you're on Amazon, right? You go to a cart, you see your data, you see your item that you want to buy, you put in the details, and before you submit it, right, it gives you a final confirmation. Even when you book flights, when you go to any kind of hotel booking platform, everyone has this final penultimate kind of a screen or a view that is presented to you that, are you sure you want to go ahead? These are the kind of details that you've added. Before you go into payments, are you sure this is the hotel you want to book? This is the flight you want to book, etc. Right? We took the same concept, we put it into the bank, and that increased our footfall on that particular journey by about 30%, because people loved that particular step, because they were given the ability to understand that it's not just going to submit, but they will have a provision to actually realize what the change is going to happen and therefore adapt to it. It's a wonderful thing. It's a very small thing actually, but as product, you take data, you get information and data from all around you, and then try to build the best solutions. The next one is embracing DEI. Very, very important as aspiring, inspired leaders, right? We want to call ourselves that. And DEI for me is very close to my heart. So DEI is diversity, equity, inclusion. We speak about it, but we don't do it as frequently as we should. Diversity is one of the pillars at Soil, right? So it's very important to understand diversity of thoughts, diversity of people coming from different places, because we all work globally, yeah, global and local, right? So it's important to embrace that, right? It's very important to understand that diversity is going to stay. It's not going to go away, and you need to allow that to prosper within your teams, within your conventions. I'm sure even at Soil, you would have people from so many different places around India who would have been coming there with different experiences, and how do you actually bring that together? Equity is a little different. Equity is actually to ensure that the right kind of platform is given to people who need it, right? So it's not about, it's a very interesting photo of equity that's there, which talks about how, providing that support to individuals to ensure that they are they're able to contribute the same way as others. And inclusion, of course, is to ensure inclusivity of all the thoughts, all the opinions, right? The last but not the least is embracing your future. Sustainability, important thing. And this is about the ESG goals rather than company, even from you as an individual. How are you able to sustain yourself, right? So far, monthly for me, and we'll take questions after this, but it's been a roller coaster ride, right? So many bends in my life that has come, and I keep remembering that each bend has taught me a new thing, a new perspective towards life. And professionally also, it has helped me understand that unless you put knowledge in action, knowledge is useless. When you share knowledge, it grows. When you are able to sit with people and have that interesting conversation, right? You can get into arguments with people with the wrong kind of knowledge, and putting it into action is very important. And one thing that I've always done, and this statement from this quote from Robert Frost, right, takes me away every time, right? When he talks about taking the road less traveled, joining soil was, when the entire crowd is going back behind Ivy League colleges, taking that conscious decision of going to soil, and has been one of the decisions that I've taken in my life. It has made all the difference. Um, I work with a lot of people from IIMs. I work with a lot of people from IITs, from Ivy League colleges across the world. And I can say with all the honesty in my heart, right, that we are no less. We have to work harder, right? We have to work harder because we knew that we are getting still doesn't recognize at par with the Ivy League colleges because they are Ivy League colleges for a reason. Yeah, right. But how can you build your capability or competency to match them? Some of the things that I see that some of your batchmates do is sit in case study competitions. What's most important is networking, right? Being on LinkedIn, putting posts, putting your opinions, POV is very, very important. And one thing that I take away, right, is if we are not making mistakes, then we are not making decisions. It's okay to make mistakes. There is nothing called a stupid question, right? There are stupid people who don't ask questions. So it's important to ask questions. Why am I doing it? Simon Sinek, the whole entire conversation of why, right, is something that is very, very important. Understand why we are doing it. Why are we studying certain subject? Why is this particular solution being proposed to a certain client? It's instead of going into solutionizing, understand the problem. Because once you understand the problem, solution is something that we are hardwired to do. You give a problem, everyone's going to solve it, right? That's how we are built. A little longer, little shorter, but we all are there. But understanding what the problem is very, very important, right? And the other thing that I also want to talk about is I'm not afraid of tomorrow, right? Because I have seen yesterday and I love today. We are in a VUCA world, right? Every day in newspapers, in soft copy of newspapers, apps, news articles, we read about companies letting go of employees, people quitting jobs, searching for new jobs. It's so difficult. And it's important to understand that it's okay. If you have the right competency, you can grow and you can do better. When one door opens, that's all you need to go in. You may have multiple doors that are visible to you. But remember, there are always multiple doors. So the door that you choose is the one that's most important for you. And just to end my entire conversation, because it's become a monologue, right? And I've not heard any questions. One very important thing that I always take away is, did you smile today, right? Did you make someone else smile today? I know I did, Mansi, for you. And I'm my daughter before you, right? I was just playing with her a while back. She wasn't really keeping well, but that moment where someone bring smile to someone, you kind of emote the same. So it's very important to take that away and to really think, did you really make someone smile? So I'll give you a very interesting anecdote, right? So I had traveled to London a few years back, and I ended up meeting someone that I used to work with 3-4 years before. This lady was actually working in the operations for the investment bank that I was working in, and of course she had quit, and we kept in touch over Instagram, and we ended up connecting, and she realized that I'm coming to London, and she actually took time to come and meet me right outside the Tower Bridge office. And there's one thing that she told me that will never go away. What she said is, Rakesh, the solutions that you provided ensured that I got one more hour with my family every day. And that was it, right? When someone that you've tried to build solutions for comes to you and says that your solution has brought them one extra hour with their family, that's a lot of value. That is when you realize that you're doing a good job. Right? It still gives me the goosebumps today. So with that, I would take a pause, Mansi, and over to you. Is there any question? Does anyone have any questions? I see quite a bit of people on the call. Are there any open questions?
I would like to ask few questions. Uh, so, how and when you thought that an MBA is required to excel in your career?
MBA. So we are in that in that in that journey, right? Where so I was actually, and I'll tell you this very, very honestly. So I was actually developing a solution for one of the clients of, again, an investment bank as a developer, right? And it was a very interesting conversation because I had to do an end-to-end implementation. And I went back to my project manager at that time, and I asked him this question: that why am I doing this? What's the benefit for my end customer? And his answer was that, you know what, Rakesh, you focus on what you're developing. Don't get into this. And this was way, way years ago, right? I think now the narrative has changed. But that time it kept coming into my brain, and I kept thinking about it. Why am I doing this? And that's when I realized that I have this knack of looking at the larger picture, and that's when I need to build competence to be able to make those decisions or enable others to make those decisions. A management course or something that can enhance my understanding of the business will help. And that's when I started pursuing. And this was in the first year of my job, right? Of course, it took 3 years for me to realize that I could get into soil. But the first year itself, I had this thing in my mind that I want to do my MBA. But of course, like everyone else, we take time to settle ourselves in our jobs, build the financial, background, and help us to to go through that journey. Because at the end, MBAs are expensive. The courses are expensive, so you need to fund yourself, or at least have the ability to manage yourself while you're studying. So that's why it took me a couple of years to build that. But yeah, that's when it came in, Mansi.
And as I'm a fresher and I am a marketing professional, so what suggestions would you like to give me? Like, should I choose role over company, or should I choose company over role? And
Good
what other
question.
suggestions would you like to give?
Okay, so someone who comes from a very mixed background, right? I think role always took priority over a company. I'll tell you why. Because um, when you work for a given role, and what I mean by role is the work that you do, not the designation that is given to you
Your
for
KRA.
an
Yeah.
organization. It's the work that you do that defines you, right? Because when you know what you're doing, and when, or even if you don't know what you're doing, if you're identifying and building your competency towards it, it's much better. An organization is something that you're working towards. You're working for an organization, and therefore it's okay. an organization and over a role is a very debatable point actually. Um, but my honest view is always look for the role, because the role is going to give you the knowledge. Organizations will change over your lifetime of your career. You always get the opportunity to build yourself into something that you want to build in, right? Um, what's the point joining a really good company with a good brand and not having the right kind of role, right? You can't always piggyback on a good brand organizations. You would rather piggyback on a good role that you would have played in a smaller organization. So I know a few people who are great influencers work for startups.
Yeah.
And some of them have not worked as well in that so big known companies, right? But still, the knowledge that they have done, the kind of work that they have done in their companies, actually builds a lot of value in the way they
The
converse.
learning is a whole different when you are focusing more on the role.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, Mansi. It's a very interesting question. Of course, I didn't get the name, but I would want to answer this. So, what's the basic skill nurture to excel his or her career as PM? Um, I would use what Soil says: character, competence, enthusiasm. This is a very, you can always go on Google and find 100 things that you can excel, and I have shown that deck as well, right? Where you could really build your competence on a certain role. But I think some of the primary skills that I think you need, one is of course domain expertise. Your core skills as product manager, understand what the business problem is, building that um, building a competence around how would you solve problems it is, and so on. Communication, product managers are often 90% of the time client facing role. Having a good conversation, a communication skill important. And communication skill to be to me is clarity of thought. To keep your conversation in the right order, in the right, to think about what you speak, and therefore give that kind of an impression to whoever you're speaking to, that you come out as a very mature person who understands the ways of life and who understands how things you emote with your clients, right? And last but not the least, one very important thing as PM that you need to do is collaborating with your team. Working with teams is very important. Although product managers are considered individual contributors, they are generally people that are the last people that receive appreciations. Is generally everyone else. No, it's a thankless job. But working with team, collaborating with teams is what turns ideas to backlog, and backlog to um, you know to successful rollouts and successful solutions to businesses. So yeah, so that's basically what I would say. And the person who asked the question about the skills, great. Another question quickly, and I would really like to understand your name, so it's easier. ABC, ABC seems so weird to me, but if I come from a financial services, the question is very, very apt, where you ask about what has been a great product for me and why. I think like I said, right, product that can bring a wow is a great product. It doesn't need to be really something really complicated. Um, if you take away all the beautification of products, um, the functionality and the way that products work is what brings value. Making the customer's life easy and ensuring that the touch points that exist for the customer is smooth makes a great product. Uh, if I take an example, right, in the financial services itself, uh, there's a very, very, very good bank called Monzo. It's a UK-based digital bank. And of course, we have an equivalent of it in India, which has a very similar UI, but I'll let everyone guess which one is it. But what's important is Monzo has actually cracked this problem, Mansi, that I was talking to you earlier. How can you ensure that you can open an account for a customer in such a short time, right? And their experience is brilliant. They have cracked in what the user experience is supposed to be, how things work, right? How to ensure that the customer is valued to the entire journey, whether it's before or after, and so on. So that's the answer, right? I come from financial services, so I'll not talk about WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram. I'm more finance guy, so I would like to talk about. So in India, I think one of the things that I like looking at is Zerodha for trading. I love the way the apps is structured, and it really helps customers who are very new to trading also very easily understand how the trading world works and how the stock market works. So that's the answer that I have for the gentleman or lady who asked that question. Okay, so Mansi, anything else that you had in your back of your mind that you wanted to ask me? Anything else that anyone else who's on the call would want to ask? That will be great to listen to.
Sir, I guess we can wrap up.
Okay, great. I think it was a wonderful experience for me to speak to all of you. Do reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. If you need any advice, any help, or any understanding of the product management space and, of course, journey after soil, I'm more than happy to help you in any ways I can. So yeah, that's from me. Signing off.
Thank you very much for accepting our request and an invitation to speak today and letting us peek into your journey, your learnings, and sharing this knowledge about the difference in roles. Like, being a fresher, I would like to know more about the difference between roles like product manager, a business analyst, a research analyst, and the project manager. So it was good to talk to you about that and the concept of minimum lovable product and what are the core competencies which we all require as marketing professionals. So hope to see you soon in our upcoming webinars. And anyone would I will share your LinkedIn profile in the chat box so that people can reach out to you if they have any questions. Right. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you so much, Mansi, and thank you again for giving me the opportunity. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. Catch you soon, I guess.